Ladies and gentlemen, it is now 6:28, and I would remind you to please sign up if you're going to speak this evening. And we'll probably let everybody speak, but please stay in line when when your name's called, out of respect for the other people who got here on time and things like that. Thank you very much. In about 1 minute, we'll get everything together and get rolling. Who? The invocation. We already have somebody. You do? Yeah. Oh, shoot. Why? Because I have something I want to say. Well, how about I let you do it right up? I'll do it. Well, I'll just add to it then. That's fine. Okay. I won't forget. Okay. Got about 30 seconds here if you want to wind it up back there. Did everyone sign up who would like to speak this evening? Okay. Okay. It's now 6:33. Notice of public meeting of agenda, City of Castle Hills, Texas, Tuesday, January the 12th, 2016. Regular City Council meeting at 6:30 p.m., City of Castle Hills, City Hall, 2009 Lemonwood, Castle Hills, Texas. I call this meeting to order, January 12th, and determine whether a quorum is present. A quorum is present. The invocation will be led this evening by John Gordon.
Mr. Mayor and members of the council and city staff, including police, fire, and public works, I just want to thank you for the opportunity to stand up here and not ask you for something, but to actually pray for you all. So that's what I would like to do for you all right now. Let's pray.
Thank you, John.
Our God and our Father, we humbly come before you this evening, recognizing that we do so in your presence. And Father, we do want to pray for each one of these public servants, because that's exactly what they are, and that is exactly how they serve. Thank you, Father, for their service, their passion for this community, and each and every resident and individual that works within this community. And I pray, Father, that they would continue to serve well, to serve this community and its citizens well. We know, Father, that your word tells us to pray for those who are in places of authority, and we do that tonight. And we do it giving thanks and honor these who serve this community so well. May all that is said and done here tonight honor you and honor Jesus Christ our Lord, in whose name I pray. Amen.
Thank you,
Thank
John.
you.
Appreciate it. Okay, before we do the Pledge of Allegiance, I'd like to call on Ms. Winger, who had some thoughts she would like to give.
I'd like us all to take a moment of silence to pray for the 12 American sailors who were arrested this afternoon by the Iranian National Guard. We hope that they will be released tomorrow morning.
Thank you, Ms. Winger. If we would bow for a moment of silence in thought of those sailors. Thank you. Pledge of Allegiance will be led this evening by Mr. J.R. Trevino.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Presentation and announcements. Diane, will you please introduce the presentation and announcements, please?
Mayor and City Council. First of all, I would like to offer condolences to Rick Harada, who is not present tonight. His family laid to rest his grandmother, who was like his mother today. Our thoughts are with his family during this difficult time. I would also like to wish council and our residents a happy new year. I hope it's happy. I hope it's prosperous for both you and the city. We have embarked on a new chapter tonight. The mayor asked that we be paperless by the January meeting, and we are about 90% paperless. Councilwoman Winger would have been paperless tonight, but her Surface has some issues, and we have now found out it has got to go back to Microsoft and go into the hospital. So we weren't able to get any of them resolved, but she was fully prepared to be paperless tonight. So I commend you, Ms. Winger, for giving it the good old American try. Another thing that we're doing is we are testing live stream right now. Chief Riedel has it on his computer. There are about 10 selected people in different states that are watching our live stream right now, and we hope to give out the website for the February meeting, so anybody who, we want to work out the kinks first, so anybody who would like to watch it from the comfort of their home instead of watching it here will be able to do that. So that is certainly a big step forward for us. I thank the city secretary, Kim Bunton, who has set that up for us, and you can see she's got all of her information over there, so that's another big step forward for the city of Castle Hills. The next thing, we're going to have a resolution in memoriam for Dr. Lundblade. We bid farewell recently to a man who certainly helped craft this city and move it forward. Dr. Hub Lundblade served the city of Castle Hills for 28 years and 1 month. That is over a quarter of a century. During the past months, I have been reviewing minutes from City Council meeting from the 70s and 80s for a project I'm researching, and the work of Dr. Lundblade and his councils show great vision, stability, and leadership as recorded in the archived minutes. I look across the commons and see his foresight in bringing a fire department to our city. As I drive around Castle Hills, I can visually see the legacy left by Mayor Lundblade, an iconic mayor who served the citizens of Castle Hills for so many years and prepared our city for the successful future we now enjoy. I would like to ask Hub's son, Greg, daughter-in-law Vita, daughter Deborah, and granddaughter Elena to please come forward. Mayor, would you please come forward and present the resolution in memoriam to the family of Dr. Hub Lundblade?
Welcome. Good to see you again. Come on up here. Let's go up here. This is a very special moment for me. Uh, I've known Dr. Lundblade for many, many years. He was, as you know, the longest running mayor in the city of Castle Hills. Not only that, a personal friend of mine, personal friends of many of yours. Gave me a lot of guidance and a lot of talking to from time to time. And so this is extra special for me this evening about this resolution number R-206-01-12B that I'll read in honor of Dr. Hub Lundblade. A resolution in memoriam commending and honoring Dr. Hobart B. Lundblade for 28 years of faithful, loyal, and dedicated service to the city and the citizens of Castle Hills. Whereas Dr. Lundblade began his service to the city of Castle Hills in 1963, and whereas in 1963 he was elected as a city council member, in 1969 elected mayor, and served until 1991, thus far being the longest running mayor to serve in the city of Castle Hills, Texas. Whereas Dr. Lundblade's long period of outstanding service and leadership, he has become a legendary figure not only in the city of Castle Hills, but also as an exemplar of good government in the realm of the cities of Bexar County, Texas, and surrounding areas. Whereas Dr. Lundblade, while presiding over the city council, brought great stability, good government to the city of Castle Hills for more than a quarter of a century. Whereas Dr. Lundblade's dedication helped encourage the community to foster a sense of importance, resolve that has given our city an outstanding recognition. Now, therefore, be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Castle Hills, Texas, that the City Council recognizes Dr. Lundblade for 28 years of loyal service. The City of Castle Hills thanks Dr. Lundblade, a devoted public leader, for the long distinguished service he provided the city. That the City of Castle Hills declares October 12th as Dr. Lundblade Day. That copy of this resolution shall be read in full in the minutes of the meeting by which this resolution is enacted, and the original thereof, subscribed by all members of the City Council, shall present to Dr. Lundblade's family the gratitude and appreciation of the people of the City of Castle Hills. Passed and adopted this 12th day of January 2016. This is a signed copy. Good luck to you. All right, thank you. Okay, if you want to come over here, we'll get some pictures. Okay.
The next one is a resolution for Captain Richard Sill for his retirement. Captain Richard Sill began his service to the Castle Hills Fire Department on February 1st, 1977. Captain Sill has served this great city of ours for 39 years, and he has now decided it is time to enjoy the fruits of his labor and enter the next chapter. I would like to ask Captain Sill and his family to come forward. Chief Riedel has a presentation, so I would ask for him to come forward. And Mayor, if you would please come forward to present a resolution commending Captain Sill for his loyal and dedicated service to the city of Castle Hills. On behalf of the city staff, we all wish you the best as you begin the next adventure in your life, and thank you so much for your service to this city.
Oh, no, I'll go first. Resolution number R206-01-12A, a resolution commending Richard Sill for the 39 years of loyalty, employment in the City of Castle Hills Fire Department, and honoring Richard Sill for his faithful, dedicated service to the residents of the City of Castle Hills. Whereas Richard Sill began his service in the City of Castle Hills Fire Department February 1st, 1977, and whereas in 1977 he began working in the fire department as a firefighter, promoted to captain in 2000, and made the fire service his lifelong career until his retirement on January the 31st, 2016. Whereas Richard Sill has always faithfully performed his duties in an outstanding manner, has been an invaluable member of our fire department, whereas Richard Sill's dedication, leadership skills have helped and instill a sense of importance, resolve in his fellow co-workers that has helped our fire department to achieve an outstanding reputation. Now, therefore, let it be resolved by the City Council of the City of Castle Hills, Texas, that the City Council recognizes Richard Sill's 39 years of loyalty to the community, that the City Council, along with the citizens, wishes to thank Richard Sill the exemplary service of the City of Castle Hills, congratulates Richard Sill for obtaining the success that he has worked so hard to achieve. That a copy of this resolution shall be read in full in the minutes of the meeting at which the resolution was enacted, and that the original, therefore subscribed by all members of the City Council, shall be presented to Richard Sill with the gratitude and appreciation of the people of the City of Castle Hills. Signed this day, Timothy A. Howell, Mayor, City of Castle Hills. I think
I want to say a couple things. Richard, if anybody knows Richard, he's one of the last guys that won't say anything sappy. So I do got to say that I had the privilege of working with Richard for 36 of those 39 years. And we were both young and in our 20s and silly back then, and the only difference now is that we're old silly guys. So, but we had a lot of great times together, and had a lot of fun together. And I know I'll always remember Richard and everything. Anytime I remember the fire department. So, Richard, thank you. I have just a small token of our appreciation, which can't express everything we feel, but wear it well. And we're going to have a small retirement celebration for Richard on the 28th of this month at 1 o'clock at the fire station. If anybody would like to come by and visit, we'd love to have you.
one thing I'd like to point out, if you take a look at these gentlemen up here, we're looking at 10, 20, 25 years of service, possibly each one of these people. Of course, we'll be going out with some new people here now that we have some retirees and things like that. But it seemed like to me that it's a pretty good place to work. What do you think? Hopefully in front of 10,000 people. Okay. Well, thank you so much. Okay. And following with tradition, we will have citizens to be heard. Would like to remind everyone that these are your comments. We'd like to hold them to 3 minutes if you don't mind, because we do have a lengthy meeting tonight. And of course, you're allowed to speak on anything you would like. We would like for you to come up, your name, address, and actually who you are, and speak for 3 minutes. I would remind council that we're not allowed to respond to citizens to be heard, but it can be referred to the city manager. So with that said, in order of people signed up, I have Diane Villarreal. Excuse me? Oh, no problem. Okay, let me make sure I got the right sheet here. Yep, sure do. Marcia Charles.
That's also an agenda item.
Okay.
You might want to mention that not agenda items.
Okay, this will be non-agenda items, and it's not a big deal. I'll just change it to the other sheet. Erica, do you want to speak on a non-agenda item? Got it, no problem. Okay, with that said, we are completed the citizens to be heard. The others will be on the agenda item, and I'll put them in order as they were signed up. Okay, we're moving on to item number 4. Conduct a public hearing and consider action regarding a petition from Dwight Udemeyer to A, rezone property 212 Lemonwood 5778A, Block 14, Lot 22, and Lot 5, with a single-family district to F, 2-story office professional district, and item B, consider a special use permit for the operation of the state licensed child care facility at 212 Lemonwood, 5778A, Block 14, Lot 22, Lot 5, per the City of Castle Hills Code of Ordinances, Section 50-497, all districts except A districts, which provides in any district and except A, the following uses may be requested for designation of special uses. 1, day nurseries or kindergartens. Diane, would you explain that, please?
Yes, sir. Mayor and City Council. Dwight Udemeyer has petitioned to rezone the property at 212 Lemonwood Drive from A single-family district to F 2-story office. In addition, a petition requesting a special use permit of a state licensed child care facility. The Zoning Commission met on October 7th and voted to request City Council deny rezone from A single to F 2-story by a vote of 3-1. The Zoning Commission also voted to request City Council to deny the special use permit for a state licensed child care facility. At the October council meeting, the council tabled this item until the January meeting. Mr. Udemeyer is here, and I would ask him to please come forward with his wife, Dr. Udemeyer.
Thank you, Diane. Udemeyers, please.
evening, and thank you again for having us here tonight and giving us the opportunity to share with you what our vision is for 212 Lemonwood. We're going to briefly review what we've discussed before and address the concerns that were brought to our attention. So tonight we'll be explaining again what Exploration Station is and what our vision is and what we're asking of residents of Castle Hills, and we're also going to address the concerns that were addressed. Again, just for those that don't know, my name is Dr. Mindy Yedemeyer. I am a resident at 120 Travertine, and I am the owner of Exploration Station. We are a private preschool. We specialize in the development and education of early childhood, starting at 6 weeks old, all the way up to 5 years old, and we also provide after-school care. We specialize in curriculum and instruction for students at that age, and we are KRS certified, which is a kindergarten readiness program for the state of Texas. And Dwight, my husband, Dwight Yedemeyer, he is the co-founder of Exploration Station. He is also a mechanical engineer, and he runs the business side of what we do and make sure that we are all safe. The benefits of having Exploration Station in Castle Hills, we feel outweigh the negatives that might come from having us here. We bring quality early childhood education to the city of Castle Hills, and when residents are looking for places to purchase their homes, they look for safety, they look for community, and they look for education, and that's what we're trying to bring to Castle Hills. As a resident of Castle Hills with 4 young children of my own, I found that it was difficult to find childcare close to my own home when I was working and I needed care for my own children. I do see that with my current families, as several of our families are Castle Hills residents, and our biggest competitors are not in Castle Hills. You have to go outside of Castle Hills to find the quality care that we're trying to bring here. We're trying to be as minimally invasive to the existing neighborhood because we appreciate the charm that Castle Hills offers to people, and we don't want to change that. We're just trying to bring something to the community that can enhance that, not bring it down. We're looking to promote a family-friendly community. Exploration Station is very involved in community outreach programs. We've participated in several programs of Castle Hills, and we want to encourage that community and that sense of community in the children that we're educating as well. We also feel that bringing Exploration Station would encourage the growth of the city of Castle Hills because we do compete with other cities around us, such as Alamo Heights, Chavano Park, and the things that families are looking for is that high-quality education. And Castle Hills can definitely benefit from bringing more education and superior education into the city. What we are trying to do is take a current facility that is not being utilized and use it to its full potential. And we feel that putting the child care facility in this building would definitely fulfill a purpose and be beneficial to the city as a whole. And I'm going to let Dwight address some of the concerns regarding the property itself.
Good evening. We're going to try to address briefly the 6 areas of concern that we feel are pertinent to getting this property rezoned. We're going to look at the building, the signage and lighting, noise pollution, landscaping, the ingress and egress, parking, traffic, utilities, and drainage. If you see, this is an aerial view of the property that we're looking at. It's 212 Lemonwood. There's a faint line, but there is a red boundary around the actual property line. This is what the building from the outside and the inside look like. It is a commercial building, and what we're trying to do is to take this underutilized commercial building and repurpose it for something great for the city of Castle Hills. This is an overview. It's a plan view of the property and what we plan to do with the property. I'll go through more slides to identify what this overview is. First off, we want to reiterate that we will not be removing any trees, that a lot of the vegetation will be staying with the property, and we'll be adding very minimal amount of signage so that we don't take away from the charm of the community. We are looking at fencing and dumpsters, and that's what this slide here is, and you can see our dumpsters here, and then the hatched lines are where existing and new fencing will be erected. Sound levels, that's always a big concern. A playground, which is where we would produce the most amount of sound, is at 65 decibels, and a residential AC will produce 77 decibels, and a public library typically is about 50 decibels. We do plan to maintain the existing lighting, and any additional lighting which we would plan to put 4 fixtures would be congruent with the existing lighting that's there. We plan to have 43 parking spaces. The center slide shows the amount of concrete that would have to be added to accommodate those 43 parking spots. And if you look here, this is the permeable amount of land that is available. There's 27% that's non-permeable, and we'll be adding 8% with the new concrete added. Drainage is always a huge concern in the city of Castle Hills. The current property does have commercial drains on it. It has open flow channel drains, and it does have underground storm drains as well. These are some pictures of the on-site commercial drainage. Traffic concerns. Traffic is what we know would be one of the biggest concerns for the citizens in and around the community of the property. I myself know that traffic is a big concern. We had a meeting last month, and I even stood up to identify traffic concerns on another project. And as a citizen of Castle Hills, I don't want to see a whole lot of traffic either. And so traffic concerns for us are an issue. And so we're going to address that at the end of this presentation. What this looks like, this is a graph that actually goes from a 12-hour day of our peak traffic. So our peak traffic is in the morning and in the evening, and during the day you relatively see very little traffic.
Okay, and I know another concern that was brought to our attention is if we do this rezoning, what happens if Exploration Station leaves? Not that we have any plans of going anywhere for quite a while, but if we were, what would happen to the zoning? So what we looked at is, what does it mean to have a 2-story office in Castle Hills? And it means that it can only be professional office entities comparable to and as minimally invasive as what Exploration Station would be. It does not allow undesirable businesses for a neighborhood, such as large shopping strips or gas stations, construction companies, restaurants, anything with storefronts and that nature. And then secondly, any business that's not specifically stated in code would have to get their own special use permit too. So they would have to come before council, just like we're doing, and ask for a special use permit, where the citizens would have a right to voice their concerns of any incoming business. I also would like to point out that many neighborhoods do operate with small businesses within their borders. These are some pictures from areas around town of neighborhoods that are affluential neighborhoods that are, well-performing communities, and they do have businesses right within their borders. There's one at the bottom there that has a pediatrician's office operating right inside a residential. You can see the houses in the background. There's several, too, at the top are both childcare facilities operating inside in the neighborhood. Alamo Heights has a few. If anybody's interested, you can always drive by and see how they operate. They do operate right in the middle of neighborhoods, and they are successful. And they are able to work with the residents and with the community to still provide good education and good quality education that works for everyone. So what does the code actually say? Well, it also states that no building may be constructed or altered to produce a storefront show window or display window. You can't have merchandise displayed. There's no machinery or equipment other than what would be usual and customary. It's also provided that there shouldn't be, if whatever comes into the building after us could not have any adverse effect on the adjacent neighborhood properties, such as lighting, dust, and odor. And so again, anything that came in after us would still need to go after a special use permit, and the citizens would still have a right to voice those concerns. So what does it say can be used? This is actually what code says can be used. And so as you can see, anything that came in after us would not be extremely invasive. And again, citizens would have a right to voice those concerns. If the code was worded differently, as a residential A, which is what it's currently zoned at, schools are allowed to operate in there, but it says grades 1 through 12. So the city of Castle Hills is not recognizing schools as preschools. And I would say that the way that the public is going, if you are paying attention to education and what other cities in the state of Texas are doing, early childhood education is becoming a priority for a lot of cities. And you've seen that with things like pre-K for SA and those types of things that are becoming state funded and publicly authorized to have education because there is value in early childhood education. There is a standard is that 78% of all children that attend preschool, out of a percentage of children, 78% of children who actually attended a private preschool are more likely to graduate high school and attend a university. So education is definitely in the early childhood realm becoming a push for many. And so I would urge council to look at that as well. But for us, it does say in the code that schools can operate within neighborhoods. So it is recognized that it's okay to have schools in the middle of your community. The things that we wanted to address from the previous meeting, a topic that was brought up was emergency access. And I do know that we are able to fit emergency vehicles in the driveway at 212 Lemonwood. And I would also like to point out that because we are a private school and in the state of Texas, we're considered a daycare, the standards and regulations that we have to follow are very superior to the safety and concern of children. So there's several, we wouldn't be able to operate without the fire marshal's approval to begin with. And we do have to follow the same ordinances for the city too, because we're licensed through the state of Texas, not just individual cities. So the standards and safety measures that we have to adopt in order to be permitted are very superior and actually go above many other businesses that are, licensed to work within the city. So as far as emergency access, it would be our responsibility to the children to make sure that there's access to emergency vehicles and other emergency like sprinklers and things like that. Whatever would be necessary to provide that safety, Exploration Station would be required to put in anyways. Spot zoning, I know someone had mentioned that spot zoning might be of a concern. And in reviewing spot zoning of the Anderson's American Law of Zoning in the 4th edition, spot zoning is different and it really boils down to what is the benefit that it provides the residents. Is the benefit outweigh the negative? And in our case, we feel that it does. And when considering zoning, it says, that courts will generally look at the compatibility of the zoning for surrounding areas, but it doesn't say what their zoning is. It says what their use is. And where we're trying to operate, you have entities that might not be zoned commercial, but they are definitely acting commercial. So it does fit within the zoning of the area. And the biggest one would be that of traffic issues. Exploration Station has worked really hard to try to find alternatives for the entrance into the 212 Lemonwood property. We have looked at purchasing a home that's in foreclosure, which is not for sale at the moment. We've looked at having an entrance off of 410. We looked at having an entrance off of Roundup, as was suggested to us. And for reasons, one or the other, things are either not for sale or they're tied up in litigation or there's issues going on. But it is definitely something that Exploration Station will continue to follow up on because we do see value in having an entrance from 410 or having an entrance off of Honeysuckle versus Lemonwood, or, in that area. At this current moment in time, though, I am not able to procure those properties, but it's something that even aside from traffic issues would be of interest to us anyways. So those are issues that we would continue to try to adopt, whether it's purchasing the home that's in foreclosure or trying to work with 410 area. The other thing is that we have to really evaluate what's the concern here, because it's really not about traffic congestion, because the property itself is big enough to handle the congestion that's produced from Exploration Station. As we've mentioned before, we generally only have 12 to 15 vehicles that are coming through our parking lot at any given time, and we have 43 parking spots plus overflow parking available within the fencing. So congestion's really not the issue. It's more about actual legitimate traffic count. And yes, the traffic count is going to increase because you are bringing more families in through the streets. But when you do we did a probability study, and in that probability study, you have, there's 12 main entrances into the neighborhood off of West Avenue, Northwest Military, 410 Access Road. So you have 12 different ways that people from all around can enter into the city. You also have 7 different connector streets within that neighborhood. So when you do a probability study, there's over 700 possible routes that one person could take to get to 212 Lemonwood. And so you can't really predict exactly which way somebody's going to go and which roads they're going to travel down every day. But when you look at the actual number of ways that someone could travel to 212 Lemonwood, and you consider that we only have about 125 vehicles, over 700 different possible routes that they could be taking. We're not putting 125 vehicles on Cream Area. We're not putting 125 vehicles on Palladium. There's no real way of predicting which routes they're going to take, but considering how many routes are possible, it really does point to me that the traffic congestion really isn't the concern. I also would like to point out that there are some suggestions that we can have, such as when they exit our property, having a right turn only, so that they would have to exit on Lemonwood, leading them out to Northwest Military or out to Honeysuckle. Another suggestion that we had was maybe having a one-way on Cream Area during certain times of the day. So during the most heavily populated times, maybe when Castle Hills Elementary School is letting out, up into a certain peak time for us as well, so that it's not one way all the time, but maybe during certain times of the day, just to alleviate that flow of traffic. Another suggestion would be to extend the school zone that exists right now. Our school zone for Castle Hills Elementary School is actually very short, and Exploration Station would be willing to work with Castle Hills Elementary School in expanding the school zone to help with any safety concerns that there might be from increasing the traffic. Let's see. And then finally, what I'd like to close with regarding the traffic specifically is that the overall value of what Exploration Station can provide, I believe, supersedes that of what would be a traffic concern. And I, as a resident of Castle Hills, I too don't want to see any congestions or traffic concerns regarding safety. And Exploration Station is more than willing to work with the city or with residents to alleviate that concern. All of our families, we did a scatter plot to see where the majority of our families were coming from. And I would say, what was it, 80% were coming from the other side of Northwest Military into Castle Hills from that direction. They weren't really coming from West Avenue. We don't have any down past Jackson Keller at all. So the majority of our families right now would be entering from the Northwest Military side or the 410 side. We had several families from Alamo Heights that come this way. And so I do believe that the majority of our traffic would not be on the roads that are of major concern. Most of them would probably be entering on Lemonwood from Northwest Military or 410 on Honeysuckle, which those roads are for that purpose and intent. And so I would urge you guys to please look at the benefits that Castle Hills, that Exploration Station would bring to Castle Hills from the overall picture. And I'm hoping that I can help you understand that we feel that the benefits that Exploration Station is bringing, like I said, supersede the drawbacks of the traffic concern. And then if you have any questions that we've gone over, I would be happy to answer them.
Thank you so much. We'll enter into the public hearing and then come back, and I'm sure they'll have some questions for you.
Okay.
Okay? Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now enter into the public hearing portion of this. It is now 7:14, and we will open the public hearing. One thing I would like to remind everyone is that we would ask that you stay within the 3-minute limit and respect the other people that are signed up. We do have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 or 12 people, no more than that, probably around 15 people. So right there, that's an hour, which will take much time as it takes in order to move this along, but would like to ask that we stay within those time frames. With that said, the first one on the list is Andy Harris, 302 Cremeria. Mr. Harris?
Thank you very much. I'm Andy Harris at the house directly through, I used to call it the Gaskins backyard, where we grew up learning to swim, playing baseball and softball and hide and seek. And next door to the Howard home place, where I learned and they taught me how to play pool and billiards, which I today am very appreciative of. Myself and my family are opposed to the petition for rezoning as stated on the agenda. Secondly, I grew up in the house next door at 300 Cremeria, where I played with my best friend Greg Smith and his family, the Gaskins, the Winnies, the Smiths, and our neighborhood was a neighborhood that was conducive to family dwellings. My mother would be here this evening at 87 years old, but she has an upper respiratory tract, and she would stand with me in opposition. My dad, who for some of the older people in the community know how controversial he was, especially coming before the council and asking you not to move from a family district to a professional district, but he passed away last year. I appreciate the presentation. It was very informative and very well done. I think the graph that illustrated the traffic was perfect for my opposition and my family's opposition, because the peak times on those graphs would create a terrific traffic hazard on Cremeria. In addition, one ways, right ways in a family district certainly is acceptable, but can cause confusion to families and family members. So not only would the enormous congestion, but all these other regulations might cause some hazards. And then I'm not familiar with Mr. Anderson's laws of zoning, but in reading some articles and references about that, this could be considered and of course controversial spot zoning in a family neighborhood. And then lastly, I would like the council to please, the zoning commission works very, very hard in their time to do the right things. They've made a recommendation after studying many more facts than I'm aware of, and I would ask and pray that the council please support their recommendation and oppose this rezoning petition. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. Okay, moving right along. We have, next on the list is Dr. Stephen McGuire.
Good evening, Dr. McGuire, 103 Zornia. Mayor, Council, thank you for allowing us to speak here. I have to tell you, I'm here somewhat confused as to why we're even discussing this, quite honestly. I, too, oppose this rezoning. If you look at our history, just the last few months, maybe even going back a couple of years, this council denied the rezoning request on West Avenue, partly because it would create an island of houses along East Castle Lane, and yet that's exactly what this would do along Honeysuckle. The Hibiscus property was denied a PUD development, putting in, 15 houses or something like that, because although it was residential, that would increase the density more than that neighborhood. And yet here, we're going to quantum leap past that to make it commercial. The West Castle Lane property was denied rezoning, partially because it would increase the amount of impermeable cover to around 50%, putting in those houses on small lots. And yet, if you drive around Castle Hills now, look at any other 1 and 2 story professional office building development, and you'll see they're running 90 to 95% impermeable cover. Once you rezone this, you have no way of stopping that. One point made also recently on one of the rezonings was that residents are now moving into this community. They're renewing housing, either doing elaborate renovations and or in some cases actually tearing down and rebuilding. And as we heard again on the West Avenue, West Castle Lane discussions, that renovation and that rebuild is increasing property values, but people come into it because they know that this is a stable residential neighborhood, and that's why they're buying into it. Well, the same thing is occurring in this district. If you just look around at the number of new houses, there's one that's just finishing up now. It's technically a renovation because they kept a little bit of the foundation, but it's really a total rebuild. That is happening in this community. Even more, a thing that really excites me is we're getting young families moving in. So now we're starting to have kids in the lower school years. And that excites me, both personally because we love to have trick-or-treaters at our house, and we're starting to see some coming around. But also because I'm now seeing these young children starting to ride their bikes out on these roads right around in this neighborhood. Roads where there are no sidewalks. If we look at the West Avenue Memory Care Center.
Steve, could we wrap it up here in a
Yes,
minute?
I will.
Thank you.
It was denied because of the increased traffic it would generate onto West Castle Lane. If you look at the apartment complex over where the Pape Dawson is, that was partially denied because of increased traffic on Gladiola. And yet here you're looking at increasing conservatively 500 car transits a day through this neighborhood. And people are going to come down Caladium because that's a straight shot from Military. They may come down Cremeria. They're not going to come down Lemonwood. So there's no way you can control it. And you can't control that by speed limits. Our police have been unable to control the 25 mile an hour on Cremeria. You can't control it by stop signs. Our police have been unable to do that. And you can't say that they're responsible parents because go look at Manton and Castle Lane.
Steve,
There's a
we have to wrap it up.
Okay,
Okay,
I'll wrap
thank
it up
you.
now. One final issue is think about the safety concerns. When I was in the military, we would never place a school or a daycare center where there weren't at least 2 all-weather, 2-lane access for both fire response and, unfortunately now, security.
Thank you, Steve.
So these children deserve exactly the same that we've given all of our other school children.
Thank you so much. Okay. Next person on the list is Harold Karen.
Mr. Mayor, fellow councilmen, I'm here to speak about a subject that I could be very angry at or about, but I'm not. My wife and I live at 303.
Can you move that mic, because we're having trouble hearing?
I'm sorry?
Move the mic down a bit.
My wife and I live at 303 Antler Drive. And I'm going to mention basically about the parking on Antler and Jackson Keller by
Miss-
Lee High School.
Mr. Karen, this is a different item that we're talking about right now, and that will come up a little later. This is a specific item and a open hearing on this particular item on the agenda.
Okay.
So Antler we'll talk about
Okay.
a little later. Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time.
Randy said, Aunt Deanne Villarreal is not going to speak.
Okay.
She's on tour.
Okay.
Okay, and so it's basically Harold
Okay, what we'll do is we'll make some special time for them. Okay. Brother Dooling, did you want to speak on item 4, A and B? Thank you.
Brother William Dooling, 201 Gladiola Lane, and I'll try to be brief because I second everything Dr. McGuire said.
Thank you.
And the issue is, to me, I think this is a wonderful program, but it's the issue of special use permit, as Dr. Udemeyer rightly pointed out. For the life of me, I don't understand why this wouldn't be allowed in a district with a special use permit. So when they're finished with it, special use permit expires, off they go, and you move on to building homes or something. I agree with Steve in that if we lose residential property, it is lost. And I think that's a huge concern for this city. We've got far and away enough commercially developing and developable property, soon more to come on the market. So I just don't understand why we would get rid of 3, 4, 5 home sites just every time they come down to council. And if all of these pass after a while, you've lost, 50 homes. So to me, that's the real concern, is the zoning, which becomes permanent. It ain't going to change. It'll then just increase next door, and probably then Miss Howard then somebody will buy that, and then it becomes commercial, and then the whole thing will be commercial, and then all the homes on Honeysuckle will be lost, and it's all one big commercial block. So I really think the council needs to do exactly what Dr. Udemeyer said and look at changing. This type of program is no different than St. George or any of the other school programs, it seems to me, and it ought to be able to operate in a zone, excuse me, with a special use permit. And then all of the arguments, presentation they made, those are arguments for a special use permit. The zoning is, it has nothing to do with the Udemeyer's proposal, which is good. The zoning has to do with, should this piece of property forever be changed out of the A zone, single family, into a commercial zone? That's the issue. I'm against it. I think we need to preserve our housing stock as much as we can, whenever we can, and we need to develop the property on 410 and West Ave and Military. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Dooling. Erica, did you want to speak on item 4, A and B?
Hi, my name is Erica Maspero. I am against this. I am also a parent at Castle Hills Elementary. We have a terrible traffic problem over there in the mornings and in the afternoons. I have seen it for myself that people are walking across the street. There's a sign that says turn right only during these hours. Does anyone listen to it? Does anyone watch it? No. I've seen people that I know that are my neighbors that don't even do that. We also have a problem on Crumeria with people that are speeding up and down the street. I don't allow my daughter to go out in the street right now because there are people that don't abide the stop sign right there. So for me to think that there's going to be another 150 to 300 cars a day, Castle Hills starts at 7 to 7:40. People are dropping off their children. It is packed over there. There's lines going all the way from the elementary school all the way down to Honeysuckle. We don't have and there's people, if I think about it, there's going to be Honeysuckle, there's Lemonwood, Honeysuckle, Crumeria. That's the only way that people are going to be getting into that gate. There's only room enough to get one car in at a time. So where are those cars going to be when 7:15 comes and it's time for school to start, for preschool? They're going to be on Crumeria, Lemonwood, and Honeysuckle. So I oppose it. As a parent, we do already have a traffic problem at the school. We already have a problem with people speeding down Crumeria and not abiding the stop sign. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Next is Margot Pena. Ms. Pena, would you also state your address when we come up here, just so we know? Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Margot Pena, and I live at 206 Cremeria.
Thank you.
Although a daycare center is a lovely idea, it is not at this particular location. The homeowners on Cremeria and all the homes that are on the corners of Caladium and Lemonwood and Zornia will also be impacted. We will be directly impacted by the backup of the traffic, especially my home, which has a stop sign right at my driveway. So if somebody is at the stop sign, I cannot enter or exit into my driveway. Erica mentioned that Caladium would be an alternate route. Yes, people, the Judemeyers cannot control what streets their clients are going to travel. They can wish that they'll only travel on Honeysuckle and on Lemonwood and on Cremeria, but they can't control them. They're going to be able, the people are eventually going to think, well, I'm going to go down Caladium or I'm going to go down Zornia to avoid all the traffic to get to the daycare center. Well, Caladium dead ends into my front yard. So once again, I'm going to be impacted. I purchased my home in Castle Hills on Cremeria, considering that it was a wonderful single-family neighborhood. And I don't feel that it's fair to me or anyone on Cremeria to have to suffer the consequences of having a daycare center that right now has 150 or 130 students. I'm sure they're not moving there to keep their level of customers at 150. I'm sure they're moving there to grow, to expand. What does that mean? 500 cars a day? Is that what they're aiming for? I would like to ask, and if I remember correctly, at the October or November meeting, that didn't these people approach TxDOT, and TxDOT answered in a negative fashion that they could not enter or exit off of the feeder road of 410 because it would directly impact or negatively impact the entrance into Loop 410? Did I not hear that? I think I did. Well, if it's going to negatively impact the people jumping onto Loop 410, how do you think and what do you think it's going to do to all of us on Cremeria? Why should I be inconvenienced with a one-way and be forced to go one way to accommodate their customers and Exploration Station? What happened to the traffic study?
Ms.
Where's
Pena.
the traffic study? I would like to ask that question. And one more thing. My neighbors, the majority of neighbors on Cremeria, including my wonderful neighbor at 300 Cremeria, Mrs. Harris, is 87 years old. And many of my neighbors are senior citizens. What's going to happen when they need emergency services at the Exploration Station's peak
Thank you, Ms.
traffic
Pena.
time?
Thank you very
I
much.
want to ask that question.
Thank you very much. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, I would really like to suggest that we stay within the time limits, please. We have many people signed up. If we go over each one, 3 minutes, please. Okay, with that said, Mike Charles.
Good evening. I'm going to make this short and sweet. My name is Mike Charles. I live at 208 Caladium. I oppose this. I just want to say that right now. I could stand up here for 5 hours and say the same thing everybody else has said right now. I just don't feel that it would be the best interest in Castle Hills to do something like this. I'm just totally 100% against it. That's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.
I appreciate it. Randy Sanchez.
Thank you, Mayor, for letting me address. I do myself live at 206 Cremeria, and sweet and simple, I oppose it also. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sanchez. There was a couple of mix-ups on the sheets here, and I just want to make sure that we have Diane Villarreal, and she lives on Antler. Did you want to speak on this particular subject? Okay, yes, ma'am. Come on. You're signed up for both, so you're great. Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much. I'll make sure that we recognize you at that time. Okay. Marcia Charles.
Hi, my name is Marcia Charles, and I live at 111 East Castle Lane. I am the direct neighbor of St. George's Episcopal School. The school is a great neighbor, but unfortunately they cannot control the actions of the parents of the children enrolled there. The traffic in the mornings and in the afternoons is very heavy. This is still the case even after the remodeling that was done, and many of the cars are now entering the school grounds off of West Avenue. My driveway is always blocked during drop-off and pickup hours. Some cars park on my front yard to wait for their children so as not have to fight the lineup. During school functions, not only parents come, and they sometimes come in separate cars, but grandparents, aunts, uncles, and more. There's not enough parking, so they are parking up and down the street and blocking the whole street. I've even had a mother use an obscene hand gesture at me when I've tried to get into my driveway. I've had people honk at me, scream at me, tell me, you know, too bad that they're blocking my driveway. Anybody that's coming to see me, whether it be visitors or laborers to do work at my house, they've got to just line up in that line and wait, and during those hours, go one way. My front yard usually has empty water bottles, wrappers, and school papers strewn throughout the whole place. Thank you for listening to me, and for these reasons, I oppose the rezoning.
Thank you, Marcia. Okay, is there, that's it on the list. Is there anyone else who came in late who would like to speak? Yes, ma'am. If you'll step forward and give us your name and address, please.
Yes, my name is Rosalinda Judemeyer, and I live at 105 West Castle Lane. I lived here in Castle Hills for 40 years, and I just want to let you know that I understand what these people are saying, all the members are saying, but I moved to Castle Hills because it was a very quiet neighborhood, and I'd have a half acre of land, and we had nobody around. But through the years, I have seen that Castle Hills has grown for the better. We have new people. Castle Hills Elementary School, it has gotten bigger. That's never going to stop. And I just hope that y'all embrace Mrs. Howard's ideas and Dr. Mindy's ideas about coming to have the exploration station. I think it's a good thing. Mindy and Dwight are good family members, and they care about the children in the community, and it would be not a good thing if you let them go. We have to embrace them, and Ms. Howard is willing to help. And the property, her property is about 3 acres of land, I believe, and it would be all inside their property. It would not interfere with all the emergency vehicles. y'all, Castle Hills, City of Castle Hills moved over here. There's nothing wrong. We have traffic, we'll always have traffic, but we need to embrace the young people that are going to make things better for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Hudemeyer. Okay. Looks like we've completed the list. Is there anyone out there that would like to speak in this public hearing on item 5, A and B? Okay. With that said, it is 7:41. Is that right? Yeah, okay. 7:41, and we will close the public hearing. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the recommendation of the zoning commission to reject the petition.
Thank you, Ms. Winger.
Mr. Mayor, can I
Yes.
make a comment?
Of course.
That's a convoluted motion, and we got into a real jam at the last meeting about that kind of a motion. It would be very, very helpful to the public and everybody else involved if somebody would make a positive or affirmative motion that says, I move to approve, and then when you tabulate the votes, you know exactly where you stand. I don't know if you remember, but last meeting, that motion that finally passed was passed by a 2-to-3 vote, two for and against, and we've had serious problems with the developer raising legal issues on that ever since. So if somebody would make a positive motion on the question at hand rather than trying to rehash the P&Z recommendation, it would sure
I
help.
understand. Thank you, Mr. Brennan. So did,
Well, somebody else can make another motion if I don't get a second, but the fact of the matter is that we operate here on the recommendation of the zoning commission, and there's absolutely nothing wrong, and it's totally legal for us to approve the recommendation of the zoning commission.
thank you, Ms. Winger. Do I have a motion on this item?
I move we approve the zoning commission's findings.
It sounds like the same thing to me.
It's the
but
same
I
motion that was just made, Douglas, and what happened last meeting, if you remember, 2 votes for the motion, 3 against, and
But that's fine, Mike.
that's not really fine.
Careful.
And in the big picture, when you pass a motion, 2 for and 3 against, what do you have? You have a minority vote for the motion, and it creates confusion. If somebody can make a positive motion that says, I move to approve the rezoning, and the vote on it is 1-4 for the motion, then it's very clear what the outcome is.
Or you could also make a motion that says that he reject. Is that correct?
You can do it that way also, because everybody will understand that when it's over.
Be very clear.
I'll do it.
Okay. Matt, would you, or I guess Ms. Winger had the opportunity to, is it okay to relinquish to him?
Absolutely.
Thank you very much. Matt?
I make a motion that we approve the rezoning and special use permit. Yes.
Now, for clarification with the city attorney, it would require a 4-to-1 vote for this motion to pass.
That's
basically to overcome the zoning commission.
That's correct. It'll require 4 votes for the motion and 1 against, or 5 for, or 4 against to pass.
Thank you, Mike. We get it. Okay, so Mr. Daggett has a motion on the table to approve the rezoning and special use permit. Do I have a second?
Quick question, if I may.
Sure.
Mr. Brennan, if this doesn't get seconded, then we're not moving forward in this, I take it, right, one way or another?
I'm sorry, what was that?
If this does not get seconded, this will not move forward at this point. I mean, we need
It'll
to...
die for lack of a
Yeah, that's
second.
right. The rezoning request dies. And then an appropriate motion probably would be at that point to reject the zoning application, and then I assume that would pass the other way.
Okay, okay. I'm going to go ahead and second it for the point of discussion.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Daggett to approve the SUP. We have a second by Mr. Squire to, for that motion. With that said, we will now go into discussion. Ms. Winger.
Yeah, it's, as a number of people here feel, is a very difficult situation because the Judemeyers are, long-term family in Castle Hills. They're wonderful, wonderful people. Zoning Commission recognized this. This is a terrific idea. Nobody feels otherwise. Unfortunately, it's not the right location because it would have such a detrimental effect on the street. Now, Dr. Judemeyer mentioned that she had done some kind of study that there were 700 routes that people could take to get here. That may very well be. I don't know what they are, but I think Margot Pena addressed this quite well, and that is that there's only two ways to come in. You come in on Lemonwood from Honeysuckle, or you come in from Cremeria. You may take other streets to get to Cremeria, but all of the traffic is going to be on Cremeria, and is going to be on Lemonwood, and it's going to run into, at least in the AM, perhaps not in the PM, but at least in the AM, it is going to run into all of the traffic from Castle Hills Elementary, which is already a problem and backs everything up. I do want to comment that Dwight said that this is a commercial building. This is not a commercial building any more than your garage is a commercial building. This was a building that was allowed for D. Howard to build to keep his cars in. It is not commercial. It's never been commercial. There's, as Margot remembered correctly, there's too much traffic on the frontage road according to TxDOT. Dr. Judemeyer told us that last time. So imagine what that does to a residential street. It's also not a professional district, and the house that that was mentioned in foreclosure, I believe, is also on Lemonwood. So for all of these reasons, plus the fact that I don't think anybody particularly wants their street to be one way unless you have a tremendous problem, I just don't feel that this is the right thing in the right location. I wish that there were a better location. I hope that a better location comes up in Castle Hills that would not have this negative impact, because the Exploration Station is a wonderful, wonderful concept. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Winger. Matt.
Thank you. When I was campaigning, I talked to a lot of the residents, and I think one of the big concerns that came up of our city as opposed to other cities such as Alamo Heights and others is the lack of quality education, or perceived lack thereof, of education in our city. And if they were saying, if you really want property values to grow and young families to come into our neighborhood, we need to really work on this area. So find ways to do that, I was asked. This is one of those areas where Dr. McGuire said that, yes, many new families are coming into the neighborhood. Yes, they are. And many of our working families need quality education for their kids. I have 3 boys that I have raised in the city, and it's been a big issue for us to find quality education also. If we don't have this here, we're going to have to travel at least to JCC or someplace well outside the city to find this type of thing. As has been mentioned, the major issue here I see is the traffic. There have been talk about cars parking in the front yards and all these things. It's not Castle Hills Elementary. This is a daycare. There's not a bell ringing. They don't have to be there at a certain time. They don't get dismissed at a certain time. They come when the parents can get them there and when they would like them there. So there is enough staging areas on that property alone where the cars can come in, circle around the entire property, and hold many cars, and there will not be cars parked on that street. Yes, she said there's 700 ways to get in there. There's really 2. It's Lemonwood or Cremeria, in my opinion. Cremeria is not really designed for a lot of traffic flow. It's a small street, not designed for that. One of the things I thought was a really good idea, I don't like one-ways anymore if I lived on that street, but if we had a one-way during the hours of, say, 7 to 9 during school zone hours or something only, and then we had a right turn only on exiting, you'd pretty much eliminate traffic problems on Cremeria. People can say no, people wouldn't do it, but a little enforcement during the beginning of the school year would quickly start getting people to pay attention to that. If I was coming to this location, and as the Yettemeyers said, most of the residents, or excuse, most of their clients come from other side of Northwest Military, I wouldn't be coming down. I live in Castle Hills, obviously. I know the neighborhood, and I would not come down West Avenue to Cremeria. I would come down Northwest Military and turn right on Lemonwood, if that's the way I was going to be coming there. So majority of the traffic anyways, even without a one-way, probably would not come down Cremeria. It's not going to change the look of the area. It's going to stay looking pretty much just the same. According to their design, there's going to be a small sign out front. I think it would nicely fit into the neighborhood. It's pretty commercial all behind there. I just think this is in the greater good of all the residents of Castle Hills, and if we plan this property, I think we can do this and have a nice benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Mr. Squire.
Thank you, Mayor. So I had the opportunity to delay this, so we had a chance to really study this traffic issue here a couple months ago with Councilman Gregory's help on that. And I was hoping for some different solutions for the traffic. I be honest with you, I don't see a lot of progress on that. I mean, I see some ideas, and I do appreciate that, but I got to express my concerns. I'm a type of driver where I don't like to wait around, and I will take every shortcut that I possibly can to get into a place, and that's just me. And I assume there are other people out there like me that do that too. And I wish there was a way we could limit crime area. I mean, a couple ideas that I was trying to work on here was, restricting traffic only to Honeysuckle, make the cars come in from Honeysuckle. You mentioned the house that's in foreclosure. That could be your dedicated entrance. You could only have that entrance coming in, and where if you came off of, you'd make it a curved entry where they had to come in from Honeysuckle and not come around from Crimeria. Basically, their direction would have to be north from 410. I don't see that yet. Is my problem. And then obviously you could do that same thing where you have a right turn only going on to Honeysuckle too, and that would force the traffic to go to 410. I also got to agree. I think Brother Dooling brought up a very good point that our codes need to be updated. I think this type of facility is very, very, very needed, especially a high-end one that y'all are proposing is needed for this community. We had daycare issues too with our kids, and trying to find one that met our standards was not easy. And so I'd love to see something like this come into our city. I just have concerns, again, if there was a way around this, a way to address this traffic issue to where we could protect the residents on Crimeria and Caladium, and that I know I would impact them if I was driving in. I mean, I can't think any other way. I would look at this way differently. And if we, if there's a way to, again, adjust this to where we fix the code and allow pre-K in, that might give us some more options to pursue this. The final thing is if we do look at rezoning this, or moving forward on the rezoning, we pretty much are, in my opinion, effectively killing the rest of the houses from being residential homes on Honeysuckle. I think that's really going to limit the sale of those as residential. That's going to force them into a different thought process. And I think that should be considered if we look at moving forward, or if this comes back for rezoning in some fashion. And I don't know what the residents' feelings are, that the five homes, I think, that are on that. But I'd like to see something to see what we could do to accommodate them if indeed that does end up coming back in one way, in one fashion or another. But just have to share my feelings on that. And if there's a way to make this thing go someplace else in the city, I think that would be an awesome addition to our city too. So, but that's all I had to say. Thank you.
Mr. Paul, did you have any comments or questions?
Yes, first I'd like to address the issue of why are we discussing this? Because it's brought to us, and that's our job, whether we like it or not. And And so it's not something that we went out and picked out of the air and wanted to have this. I just want to make sure people understand that, and I'm sure they do. The second thing is we do need to discuss the zoning issue first. The SUP is an afterthought, and the zoning issue, to me, is the primary question. And if it was, in fact, business zoned, then we could discuss what type of SUP. And I guess I disagree with Ms. Judemeyer, Dr. Judemeyer, excuse me. I believe it is a potentially spot zoning situation. When I read the stuff, it basically was saying that unless it shows a specific need, like, and it used as an example, like the area needed a grocery store or something like that. And this is obviously not a grocery store. I love the concept. I love the idea. Ms. Howard, the Howards have been great to the city, but we also have to do what's best for the neighborhood and what's best for the city in our judgment. And I believe if we zone this, well, let me go, it was mentioned about last meeting in December, and yes, we had the potential to do some transitional zoning between commercial and residential, which would exit a lot fewer cars than is anticipated here, onto West Avenue, which was a 4-lane connector. And quite frankly, Mr. Judemeyer was one of the people that thought that the exiting of that traffic was a major issue, and it was nowhere near what this is. I just do not believe that we can take this piece of property that is inside the neighborhood and doesn't have a direct access to 410, a direct access outside the neighborhood in which it sits, and allow that to happen. It just doesn't fit. And the borders around this city, the area that we're in, just do not allow for an additional connecting, because there is no connector. Honeysuckle is the closest thing to a connector, and it's a 2-lane. And so I'm opposed to this because I think it's a spot zoning situation, and I think it would be, I love the concept, and I wish we could find a place, or they could find a place to bring it into the city, but this is not the place, in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Mr. Gregory.
I'd like to ask either of the Judemeyers, where are the properties in Alamo Heights they're alluding to? Well, hello?
Excuse me?
Where are the properties in Alamo Heights that you're alluding to?
Mr. Schumeyer, would you come up,
that
please?
similar properties are found?
You mean where there's schools and they're inside residences?
Well, you
Right. I don't know the exact addresses, but I know there's different private schools and preschools, and because Alamo Heights was primarily residential, a lot of those preschools and daycares have taken older homes that they have converted into child care facilities. And they are licensed to be so, and they're not licensed as in-home daycares. I don't know the name of them, but I do know of 3 particular private schools that are preschools that operate similar to our capacity, that do operate in older homes that were converted into licensed child care facilities.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gregory. Okay, we have a motion, and we have a second to approve. We're going to do a roll call vote on this.
Let's clarify exactly what we're.
We are not going to get, this is to approve, to allow them to move into that area, to rezone. Yes, it is.
Yes, it is.
That's the motion that was.
That was the motion that's on the table right now, is to approve. It is a positive motion is what it is. If it fails, then we'll go back and do another motion on to disapprove.
We don't. If it fails, it fails.
There you go. So with that said, this will be a roll call vote. Douglas?
No.
Frank? Squire? No. Matt?
Yay.
No.
Item fails. Okay. All right, moving on. This is item 5, consider action regarding approval of ordinance number 2016-0112, amending chapter 14, traffic and vehicles, section 44.2, and adopting a section 44.178 of Code of Ordinances to prohibit parking on certain streets during school hours. Diane, will you explain this, please?
Mayor and City Council, I received complaints from residents about parking concerns from Lee High School. Coincidentally, Councilman Paul had also received concerns about parking in the area. It appears that congestion is caused by not having enough parking spaces for students and teachers. In addition to touring the neighborhood, Chief Davis talked to the assistant principal, Mr. Poole, at Lee High School. He explained the parking would only get worse because additional construction was going to be done in the future. We both toured the streets around the high school and Jackson Keller Elementary. Patrol officers have issued citations and warnings for parking too close to an intersection, stop sign, sidewalk, or fire hydrant. They are unable to issue citations for vehicles parked on the streets. Additionally, the postman will not get out of the truck to deliver mail, so some residents have not gotten mail delivery. Looking for possible solutions, Chief Davis and I toured the streets around Alamo Heights High School to get an idea of how parking is addressed around that high school. The streets surrounding the high school all have no parking during school days. I understand there may be certain circumstances where a resident may be having a get-together at their house or the need to park cars on the street. We can work with these people individually and issue them a special permit on an individual basis. The proposed sign would be no parking, school days only, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m., tollway zone. Chief Davis will explain this item further. He would have been ready, but we had to have someone else's computer up here, so we're on it.
It'll come after we go up here. Thank you, Chief. Go ahead.
I'll try to make this brief. Like the city manager mentioned, we had some complaints regarding some parking issues on the Antler Road specifically, so Ms. File and I went out and tried to figure out a way to remedy the issue and figure out if there even was an issue. So the reason we're here today is the citizens sparked this initiative, and basically it means vehicular parking along residential streets, primarily during school days on the south zone of Castle Hills. The concerns that we found, safety concern, traffic hazard for both pedestrian and vehicular, the inability to receive mail, and we found congestion. The streets in question was the Antler, 200 and 300 block, Amerson, Cotillion, Herwick, and Shalimar. Now, off to the right, you'll notice 4 to 6 signs, and this is an anticipation that this ordinance is passed, and how many signs would it take to cover the particular area of interest. And I believe that we would place the signs approximately 100 to 150 yards apart. There is no standard in the industry for this, but we believe that that would accommodate the issue. The question came up, is there a state law that already addresses this concern? And we went to the Transportation Code and we found 545-302, stop, standing, or parking prohibited in certain areas. This is where we have a little bit of enforcement ability, 30 feet from a stop sign, 20 feet from a crosswalk, 15 feet from a fire hydrant, and where an official sign prohibits parking. However, an ordinance would support the actions of an official sign going up. I have 4 short clips to provide council and the residents to show exactly what we're dealing with, specifically on Antler Road. This is Tuesday, December the 1st at 2:30 p.m.
That's pretty bad.
This is going towards Lee, is that correct, Chief?
We're on Antler going towards Jackson Keller from the 300 block.
And please note that if a mailbox is blocked, the mailman will not stop.
That is Jackson Keller right there.
That's actually not true. I don't know. My mailman stops. Because you can have visitors at your house and they
We
stop.
have, this is Monday, December the 7th.
They had a bad mailman.
10 a.m.
This is when?
Monday at 10 a.m.
Same street?
Same street, 4 different times.
Oh, I see. So it clogs up the closer you get.
This is Wednesday, December the 9th.
Well, I think we understand that it's a bad situation.
2:15 p.m. I wanted to give a good, I'll show you one on a weekend with the council and audience.
And this is 45 minutes before the school would let out, correct? Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, but they have other activities there, as you know.
This is a Wednesday, December the 9th. This is live traffic. At 2:15. And I mentioned pedestrian traffic.
Okay. Well, we get the picture. Can I ask a question? Is there some reason that we haven't met with the higher-ups at NEISD? Because they're responsible for
They already
causing
have.
this problem.
They already met with him. He'll cover that.
I'm sorry, one more and we'll be done.
God, enough already.
This is on a weekend. We believe this is what our residential streets should look like.
Right, okay.
Antler coming off of Jackson Keller. anticipating, if passed, erecting 22 signs at an approximate value of $45 each for a grand total of $990. For no parking school days, 8 to 4, tow-away zone is what our sign would read. I couldn't find an identical sign that what we would request.
Can I ask a question? Is that the price regardless of how many signs we order? If we order less signs, is it more or?
Well, I based the price off of previous signs that we purchased, and it was around $45 a piece, and then I just.
So if we
could-
purchase 5 signs or 10 signs, it's still $45?
We could get a discount. I have not purchased that many signs in bulk.
Okay.
I don't know. And I know there was a couple of questions about visiting with the Lee High School principals and vice principals.
No, I'm not talking about the principal. They have no control. I'm talking about going to the administration or the board. Because the principal can't do anything. They don't do the building.
Well, they're actively engaged in this project and trying to.
But what have they done to give the students more parking?
Well, they're under construction right now. They're having
That's
a
the
parking
point.
issue.
That's something that should have been addressed higher above them.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to move on, the streets that we're anticipating additional problems on, if we address the antler issue alone, it just would move the problem to the next street over. So we are recommending the following streets highlighted in red, and on the previous slide, which block numbers we're referring to.
That's it.
That's it, yes, ma'am.
Well, when I
Yes.
got this, I made a bunch of phone calls to people. I did not reach anybody on
She can-
Shalimar, but I'm assuming that Frank took care of those people. And I wasn't able to get a hold of anybody on Emerson. But I did talk to people on Cotillion and on Herwick, and of course on Antler, and you saw that there were 2 people here. At least, I don't know if anybody's still here, but I believe Mr. Karen left. But I did speak to him, and I think you've proved the point, that there's a problem on Antler. As far as as Herwick and Cotillion are concerned, they're not having a problem. And I explained to them exactly what the concept was, that if we put the signs on Antler, that you would shove the cars over to park on their street. And what everybody told me, and I have the names of all the people I talked to, they would prefer that we not put the signs up until there's a problem, because there may not be a problem. But Diane also did inform me, as she said today, that we will give people permits, because if people have, guests coming during the day, or they have, workers coming during the day, they may not have room in their driveways. I did talk to one family on Herwick where they actually have 4 cars, and during the day, they park 2 of their cars in the street. One of the cars belongs to their son who goes to Lee, but he doesn't drive his car. He leaves it at home. He walks to school. So there would be, some inconvenience to some families, and I believe we have a way of addressing that. But I just think that if we're going to be buying signs, unless we have some benefit to buying that many signs, which I assume is the number of signs you want for all of those streets, that there's no reason to put the signs up if there's no problem. So that's
Thank you,
what
Ms. Winger. Okay, Chief, thank you so much. We'll have you come back up if there's any questions. All right, with that said, we'll have a motion, we'll have a second, and then I believe there was somebody who wanted to speak on this from the crowd. Yes, ma'am, I have not forgot about you, okay? So do I have a motion on this item, please?
Make a motion?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. With that said, we will allow the citizen to come up and speak, and then we'll go into discussion. No, we didn't pass it. We have a motion and a second. Well, council is about to make that decision now.
Okay, I'm the one that has been screaming, literally, after the second almost head-on collision down on Antler when I made the mistake of turning my vehicle. I live on right there at Flintstone.
And your name, ma'am, and your address?
Diane Villarreal,
At
sorry.
what address?
Diane Villarreal, 301
ma'am.
Antler.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
I face Flintstone right here. And what you saw is nothing, because usually I'll have 2 or 3 cars parked in front of my house alone. And as a matter of fact, I pulled over the mail lady because I was really irritated because I noticed she was driving off with my mail. And I hunted her down, and I said, excuse me, hello, you need to bring me my mail. And she says, well, I don't have to deliver your mail. I said, well, it's not my fault that somebody has made the decision to park in front of my mailbox. She said, well, I'm really sorry, but I don't legally have to get off. So I was really irritated about that. And on that, it just so happened that day was the second almost head-on collision that I had, because I stupidly went down towards Jackson Keller, and somebody tried to play chicken with me in their vehicle. And at that particular time, it was packed. People were gleefully pulling in front of people's mailboxes. They were trying to block driveways. They were doing all kinds of stuff. And this was between the hours of 8 and 5. A lot of those people stay at that school until 5, so we actually have a problem until 5 p.m. But I know I'm sick of it. Mr. Karen is sick of it next door. I know the neighbors are sick of it. We're not getting the services that we need to get. And it's all because Lee High School didn't pre-plan and do what they were supposed to do. Well, it's not my problem that Lee High School did not pre-plan. And what you may suggest to them is, first of all, those little teenagers don't need to be driving to school anyway, that maybe only the seniors be allowed to drive to school. That way they reduce the amount of parking that they need, and those little brats can go ahead and, get on the buses and drive, actually get to school. So as far as I'm concerned, it's really not a problem. Close the campus or do something a little logical and keep these kids from actually driving. If there's not enough parking, not my problem, not my neighbor's problem, we need to resolve it. It's not Castle Hill's problem. So I hope you guys, please, do something about this and get rid of all this congestion down the street so we can actually, use this Jackson Keller intersection and not be creamed by these people coming in who like to play chicken with us.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your comment.
I have a question for her? No. Can we talk about it?
Yes, you can.
It
You
has
can
just gone
ask
on.
her a
This has
question?
been
Of
a
course.
progressive problem for this last year. It started late last year. Somebody, in all their infinite wisdom, decided to start parking. Well, then when it's just steadily gotten worse as word has gotten around. Oh, Antler, it's free open, road parking. Yay! So now we have the problem. And as you saw, most of those cars are rent-a-wrecks anyway, and it's bringing our property values down, because let's say you're trying to sell your home, and now a realtor brings them, during the day, and somebody sees this mess. Do you think anybody is going to want to buy a house on our street? There's so much more to this, and the traffic alone is just a nightmare.
Ms. Valerio, we have
I didn't hear the original question. Was this a problem before the construction?
Actually, it started last year, and I noticed it started with about 4 or 5 cars at the end of the street, and I thought, nah, okay. Well, at the beginning of this year, I started calling the police because it started getting worse and worse and worse. And when I finally, had 3 people in front of my house, and then my mail lady was driving off with my packages, I said, no, this has got to stop. So that's when I came up here, and, and with the almost head-on collisions and, other safety concerns, I decided it was enough. And so I even offered to go and have a petition signed by all my neighbors and maybe drag them up to a city council meeting all angry and mad. But Chief Davis said that wouldn't be necessary, that you guys were wonderful and it wouldn't be necessary for me to do this.
Well,
so I'm really hoping that this is going to be
Yes,
a
ma'am.
really great thing.
Well, I can assure you one thing, that something up here will happen one way or another in about 30 seconds, okay?
Okay.
Thank you so much. Thanks for your input. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Daggett. Do we have a second by?
Discussion?
Sure, why not?
First, I don't think the signs are strong enough. I think it should have a no towing.
A no what?
Along with that sign.
No towing.
It just said no parking.
No towing?
Let's make sure we line up all the people who tow cars away and just give them a heads up. What do we do in the following circumstances? before I get to that, this is a health and safety thing because I can just think of somebody who may have a heart attack or a stroke or a slip and fall or something like that, and how in the heck does the fire department get down that street? And that's bad. How do we accommodate a person who has a party, a UPS delivery, a worker in a house, delivery men, or friends?
With permits.
Do you issue it to the homeowner or to the people delivering the item?
Well, UPS can stop and anytime, and the patrol officers are not going to do anything. We would issue permits. We're a small town.
Yep.
And so they can come to either the chief of police or myself. They can call us on the phone, and we can, let's say Miss Villarreal is having a party, and she's, going to have a lot of cars. She can call us and tell us. This is not to be a Gestapo. It is to help the neighbors. So if they have extenuating circumstances, we can very easily issue them permits. If it's for a one-time party, we can tell the chief of police can go and tell dispatch, for the afternoon of January 14th, 207 Antler is going to have a party, leave them alone. And hopefully it will just be the party people. If we see that it's, evolving into something bigger, then we can issue permits for people to put in their cars. I mean, like I said.
Or we could handle it exactly the way we handle it on Garden View.
What-
Every Sunday on the side of the street, you can't park on all the way down the street. Chief, what do your guys do when, when they find somebody parked on the other side of the street?
You're talking about South Garden View.
South Garden View, right? Parking citation, warning, and towing.
Well, I hope we're very aggressive on the towing because the word will get out when you get the first 5 or 10 cars towed away, and you won't see anybody on that street.
And that will help pay for the signs.
Yes, it will.
Chief, do we have I'm sorry, go ahead. Douglas, were you through? Okay, Frank, did you have anything to say?
Just briefly, there's been a lot of good comments. We know the issue. We know we need to take care of Antler. Ms. Winger suggested, why don't we see if they move to the next street, or do Antler, do 2 streets right now and wait and see if they go the other. That's fine, but we got to do Antler, and we'll probably have to do Herrick, I'm sure. The second thing is that, like Diane said, we're a small city. Let's get the signs up. Let's let the neighborhood people come to the city and sit down and say, hey, how can we work this so we can have party or have this or have that? What's the best way of doing it? And I got an idea. A few of these people will figure it out. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Paul. Mr. Squire, do you have any questions or comments, please?
Yeah, a couple of items. If I could have a little bit of latitude, I know Brother Dooling, since he's in the area, he had something he wanted to bring up. Is that okay if I ask him what he?
Is it off the subject?
It's on subject. Go ahead.
Brother Dooling, does it have to do with this particular ordinance here? Okay. Understand.
I just thought I would share with you, Brother William Dooling, 201 Gladiola. I lived in the city of Cambridge, Massachusetts for 3 years when I was in law school. You are not allowed to park on the street at any time unless you are a resident of Cambridge, Massachusetts, and you have a sticker that so says. So being out of state, I had to park off the street. But they also had for visitors, because there was absolutely no parking allowed unless you were a citizen resident of that city. If you were a foreigner in the Free Republic of Cambridge, you just simply weren't allowed. However, you could get, at City Hall, you could get a placard, good for like a week or whatever it was. They had different ones. If you had guests coming in or something like that, that would allow temporary, it was a temporary parking permit they just put with your thing. We have these, or used to have, I have one at home, these Castle Hill stickers.
We have those.
That would solve the problem of the lady from Lee with the child that has a car that, so you could if you're a resident, you can park on the street. And if you need to have guests, you just come see the officer here and get 10 placards, and there you are.
Great idea.
And it worked extremely well. They had the additional problem of snow plowing where you could only park on one side of the street every other day. It was very confusing, but the actual residential parking was not a problem. If you didn't live there, you just didn't get to park, period.
Thank you, Brother
Thank you,
Dooley.
Brother Dooley. Mr. Squire, do you have anything else to add?
Yeah, I do. Thank you, Mayor, for that, too. That's one of my concerns, is how do we accommodate our residents with moving forward on this? Is there a way to issue a long-term permit, especially for people that live here and they move their car out every day? I'd like to see that addressed to where they're not calling in every day to get a permit. And whether we do it through registering license plates or whatever system we come up with to make this easily manageable, I'd like to see something like that happen on this.
If somebody were to come to our office and they had 4 vehicles registered, we can work something out with them.
I don't understand what the big deal is there. Why don't we just, if someone's going to come in and they live on that street, and they've got, they want 5 little of those 5 little stickers, they could temporarily put them into their guest's car.
Yeah, and again, I don't want to get into.
And if we catch anybody selling them or something, well, you know what happens then.
Okay, okay. So if I may continue, Mayor.
Oh, why not?
Thank you. What I want to find out is the number one, I think this is something we need to move forward with. Okay, I just want to make sure we administer it right and we take care of our residents in our city. We have it says the 200 to 300 blocks of Antler. Does that go all the way to Jackson Keller? It does not. Okay.
Emerson? Yes, it does.
Oh, there we go. Thank you.
Yeah, it's Blewett that doesn't go through, but Emerson goes through.
Okay. So everything marked in red is where we would have no parking then?
What is, Dan,
Okay.
you?
Well, Chief, the reason I'm asking is you say only the 2 and 300 blocks of Antler. That's not the 100 block? That's the 200 block right there at the intersection? 231 Herwick? I'm sorry, yes. 200 block of Antler from Jackson Keller. Okay. Okay, thank you. I just want to make sure I'm clear on that. That's what I wanted to make sure of. And the other question that brought up that Ms. Winger brought up that I think has some merit is, do we want to do this all at once, or do we want to phase it in? And I'd like to, I don't want to punish somebody. I mean, Shalimar is a ways up on Shalimar. Do we, how do our residents feel in that area? Are they being negatively impacted at this point?
The issue that's going to happen is if you do it on Antler, they're going to go over to Herwick because it's right across the school too.
Yeah, I agree with that. I see that.
So
I think Herwick, Antler, Cotillion, and Amerson are all directly impacted. I just think as you go further up Shalimar, that may not be. That's why Frank Paul lives there, so.
Well, those are Jackson Keller Elementary, and they're getting ready to start construction also.
Yeah, we had an issue with that 4 or 5 years ago, and I'll show the police, I'll show the chief how far up they come. They didn't actually come into the neighborhood because there's enough of a line along the fence of Jackson Keller and Shalimar, and that really didn't affect anybody. What did affect them was when they got around the corner down there on the Cotillion right at Jackson Keller. I mean, they pressed the limit there. Then Chief Davis, the other Chief Davis at the time, put a sign up, and that took care of it. But they didn't come back far up into the neighborhood when they were building the school there. So, so you don't have to go that far, and I think the chief knows that. But I would, like Ms. Winger said, let's do the one that's affected now. Let's do the other one that's going to be obviously affected, which would probably be Herwick, and then see where it falls, and we can go on from there. And to answer the other question, we had a very good meeting, I think, with the principal of the school, and explained to her what was happening and why, and she wasn't happy, not unhappy with us, unhappy that the situation has been gotten to that point that they have to do something, because she understands it's the fault of their school, and the construction and the lack of parking and the whatever. And I like the idea. Let's go back to just seniors driving cars. That's a good point. I'm going to bring that up because I am on their community committee with the school, actually, and that's what brought this to a head this week. Thank you.
Folks,
Okay.
hang on.
Mayor, I've got
We're on item 5. We have 10 tonight. Can we get this moving, please?
Couple questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Mr. Daggett?
Will this be needed forever? After the school construction is done, will there be parking come back to the campus, or have they used it up with buildings?
Well, as you well know, Northeast just passed a $499 million bond, and the chief was told that it's going to get worse before it gets better. So I think that we can readdress.
Foreseeable future, yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Ms. Winger. Ms. Winger.
Yeah, the only, I mean, this, of course, the recommendation that Diane has made makes perfect sense, and I understand that. But I talked to quite a number of people on Herwick, and one of them, I believe, is here tonight, and they don't want the signs at this time.
They will.
They just feel that they don't have the problem, and they want to find out if the problem is going to come there. So, you know, I explained to them exactly what the logic was and why you wanted to do it now so that they wouldn't have the issue. Now, the people on Cotillion told me that the only issue that they're having, and for some reason nobody's objecting to it, is that the parents from Jackson Keller Elementary are lining up on the street, but it doesn't take very long, and it's not blocking them, and they don't care. Most of them aren't home at that time anyway, so it's okay with them. A lot of them had kids that went to Jackson Keller, so they're okay with that. So they also felt they don't have a parking problem at this time. It's true that all of these streets may end up having the parking problem once we post Antler. But all I'm suggesting is that we do it one step at a time, that we post the signs, unless there's some reason that we can't do that we post the signs on Antler and let's see what happens. And then if it turns out that the very next week or 2 weeks later everybody's moved over, well, then we can post the signs on the streets that are equally affected. There's no question that Antler needs it. I don't know anybody object. You know.
Thank you, Ms. Winger. How I would suggest we do this to limit time is to do an amendment to this particular thing and name the streets, run it through as an amendment, and if that doesn't pass, then we'll just subtract streets as we go. Yes?
I'd like to amend to the motion to, at this time, do Antler and Herwick.
So we have an amendment to the motion to Antler and Herwick. Do I have a,
Why can't we
Not
just
this
do
time.
Antler?
we're doing this one at a time, Leslie. It's either going to pass or fail. We're not going to stay here all night talking about all these streets. Okay, so with that said, we have Antler and Herwick. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have Antler and Herwick, an amendment to the original motion. All in favor? 4. All opposed?
Well, I'm only opposing because of people on Herwick who don't want it.
That's fine. Okay, so it went down 4-1. It's Antler and Herwick. Now we go back to the original motion. Do I have a motion for the item number 5? All in favor? All opposed?
Now, what are we voting for?
We're voting for the original,
All
which
the
is,
streets?
no, we're voting for the original ordinance in order to put signs up. Okay, all in favor? It passes. Thank you so much, council. Moving on to the next item. This is item 6. Consider the approval of ordinance number 2016-01-12B, amending Chapter 38, Streets, Sidewalks, and Other Public Places by repealing Article 6, working in the right-of-way of Chapter 38 by adopting the new Article 6 of Chapter 38 in the place of former Article 6. Wow. Diane?
Sure. Mayor and City Council, Chapter 38 of the Castle Hills Code of Ordinances deals with streets, sidewalks, and other public places. Article 4 is work in the right-of-way. Staff determined there were numerous unaddressed or ambiguous items in the article dealing with work in the right-of-way. The first thing we did was add definitions, And I've got to tell you, we had 2 engineers helping us with that and 3 staff members. And we've worked on this ordinance for 6 months, so I can tell you that it's been thoroughly researched. We added definitions of life of the street means until such time as a certain street or right-of-way is repaved by the city or another in the same location as the permitted work, or until the PCI of the street or right-of-way drops below 50. You ask what PCI means? It's Pavement Condition Index. The next thing we added was TMU-TCD, which means Texas Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices. I had given you a comparison chart, and this is it. And you can see the current code on pre-applications. No one had to register with us, so we had no way to check anything ahead of time. We have added for users to pre-register. On insurance, a certificate was required. We're still maintaining that. The coverage limits were not stated. We have taken a lot of this from San Antonio. Their minimum is $1 million, so we want to add $1 million for our minimum. A performance bond was required, but we expanded it to include performance or surety bond, a letter of credit, or escrow funds. There's no reason that somebody would need to give us a performance bond if they're doing a small sidewalk. We can just ask for a letter of credit. Then, valued at the cost of pavement restoration, we're keeping that one. Released after work accepted by the city, we're keeping that. On the application, and this is really where this one started, we let the applicant tell us what our PCI was. And worse than that, we would go to our engineer, which meant that we were paying an engineer to tell us what the PCI, which is the Pavement Condition Index. If you remember, in 2014, we went over our budget on engineering fees quite substantially, and this was one of the reasons. We now have cartograph. We know the PCI index of every single street. We're going to tell them the PCI index. Emergency repairs were never addressed in the application. It just was never addressed, so we're addressing it. It's in your red line version. The term of the permit was 90 days. We want to change that to 30 days max, and it may be renewed or extended if necessary. The application only went to streets only. We want streets, alleys, and public easements. The biggest one is we want to have flowable fill on alleys. It was never in our ordinances before, so that's one of the big ones right there. Construction, and if you'll see, all of them were never addressed. So we never addressed any type of construction in our right-of-way. We now are referring to the TMU-TCD for traffic control, what is necessary, and we will follow that. We'll give them a 2-hour window for a backfill inspection, which means that they really didn't have to have a backfill inspection before. No inspection for flat work and paving until the backfill is approved, and that's a big one because we want flowable fill. If they don't put flowable fill in there, they either have to rip the whole thing back up or we just go on a wing and a prayer, which is what we've done before. Temporary backfill is allowed. Again, I told you we required flowable fill in the alleys and streets with the good condition. On the repair required, it was a very convoluted formula before that, again, the applicant would tell us what the PCI is. Now we're going to tell them what the PCI is, and we're going to tell them whether or not they just do a small repair or they go curb to curb, block to block. As you see, last time it was just a maximum of 100 linear feet. If we've just repaved a road, they need to go curb to curb, block to block. The next one is minimum 1 foot beyond trench each way. No, there's a minimum trench repair only. Again, we want use of flowable fill and 95% compaction. Flowable fill is required, and the user before had the option to pay the city for pavement repairs. We don't want to take that liability. The closeout was never addressed. We now will issue a certificate of completion. The life of the street, if it equals 50, that's the life of the street, or when it's repaved. So in other words, if a street has a PCI of 65, that's still in the life of the street. Once it hits below 50, then we feel like that's the life of the street. On the release bond, we want to hold the bond until the work is accepted by the city. Also on the fees, we're staying the same at $50. We would like to add an expedited fee. We will bring that to the February council meeting under the schedule of fees. We would like for that to be $250, but again, that will be brought up at the February meeting. The inspection fee is, as it was before, the engineering fees as incurred. Penalties were never addressed. We've added some penalties. We're adding $500 a day for unpermitted work. We have unpermitted work going on in this city every day. We are also addressing a public inconvenience penalty, a pavement degradation recovery fee, and $100 a day for failure to relocate facilities in allotted time. Are there any questions?
I have one quick question. Diane, on the, will the judge decide what the public inconvenience fee will be on the penalty, or is it a set guideline? I think it's $500, isn't it?
I believe I've got it.
Is all this related to streets?
Thank you.
We talked about this a while back.
The pavement degradation fee is $50 per square yard. The failure to relocate was $100 a day, and the public inconvenience penalty, you can see the table below. If you have it, it's based on like if it's in a
I saw
traffic
it.
lane.
I
and
just
it's
wanted to
per
make
square
sure council was aware that it is a sliding scale.
Yes.
and it Sounds like they got it. Okay. With that said, do I have a,
Yes, you do.
let me, hang on just a second, wait.
Let's go.
Do we have a motion for this item?
So move.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. So with that said, discussion. Douglas, did you have anything to say on this?
This is very good work. Very good work. I had no idea that things could be improved to this degree. And I want to congratulate all the people who worked on it. This is very good work.
Thank you, Douglas. Mr. Paul, did you have anything? Thank you, Mr. Squire.
Oh, a couple items, if I may.
All right.
I'll be brief, but
Please.
I just wanted to, I really just wanted to say, Dan, thank you for the effort that was put into this. I've been griping about this for, I think ever since you came on board, I've been griping to get this thing done, and poor Rick has heard me over and over again like a broken record, but we needed to get these contractors under control and protect these streets, especially as we're redoing our streets. So I'm glad to see this, and I know it took a long time and a lot of work, but I'm glad to see this finally coming to fruition, and we get some teeth in to help protect these streets that we're redoing. And for that matter, alleyways too, as we continue to improve our alleyways. So I just want to say thank you on that, Diane.
Thank you, Mr. Squire. Mr. Daggett, did you have any questions? Or? Oh, thank you so much. Ms. Winger? Oh, great. Okay, so here we go. We have a motion. We have a second on the table. All in favor? Great. All right. Thank you, council. Now moving on to the next item, which is Item 7, consider the approval of replat of subdivision plat establishing Woods of West subdivision. The proposed subdivision will create 5 lots from a tract of land which is 4.5.95 acres located in Joseph McClendon Survey number 326, abstract number 504, formerly being all of Lot 1, part of Lot 4, Block 4, Castle Hills Edition, recorded in Volume 980, page 393, plat records of Bexar County, Texas, commonly known as 101 Hibiscus. Diane?
Oh, it wasn't even on.
Thank you. Mr. Baker, welcome.
Howdy. Hope this is a happy moment this evening because the 101 Hibiscus has been a contentious project, and hopefully we have some good news for you here. We're here before you asking for approval of a replat, and we will show it to you momentarily. All right. I will say while it's coming up, I sure wish we'd put the PUD developers through the process we went through on this replat. It would sure keep them honest. So with that, Council,
PUD
please.
developers.
We never said a replat was easy.
Yeah, and it is not. It's a torturous path. Maybe so. All right, so the contents of our presentation will show you the replat layout. We'll talk about housing density, stormwater, deed restrictions, and compliance with city ordinances. Actually, I think we forgot that last part on the slide, so I will tell you, we have complied with all city ordinances, which was a torturous path. All right, here it is. The 101 Hibiscus property is right at the bend in West Avenue at the intersection of West Avenue and Hibiscus. And zooming in on it, here's the existing property, the 101 Hibiscus property. 4.6 acres nominally at West Avenue and Hibiscus. The current house is located at the southeast portion of the lot. There's a number of ancillary buildings, a couple of barns, and other things on the property, but the main white house there is at the circular drive. And this is how it'd be replatted. A key to this replat and the challenge was retaining the original house, which is quite iconic for the city of Castle Hills. It's one of the earliest houses in Castle Hills and quite a landmark. I know whether y'all saw that in a news article recently in the Express News. That house was the picture of Castle Hills that made that article, which was on something on low crime rate in Castle Hills. Did y'all see that? Yeah. So that the photograph of this house was the image of Castle Hills that was put up. I'm sorry?
You leaving that house?
Yes, the house is staying. So the plat here was a bit of a challenge. The lower right lot includes the existing house and its garage.
Oh.
All right? The arched gate, the circular driveway, the house, all of that's being retained on that lower right lot. Outbuildings will have to go away to make room for the other lots. All right? The upper right lot, the one that's lot 1E, will be the one that exits onto West Avenue. It will have its driveway onto West Avenue. The other 4 lots, the existing lot plus 3, will have their driveways onto Hibiscus. So in terms of traffic, we only have 3 additional houses that will exit onto Hibiscus. We'll have 1 house with a new driveway onto West Avenue. Okay? There's 1 flag lot. The one on the top, lot 1B, a little over 1 acre, and the only way to make it work was to give it a driveway that goes between the other 2 lots there. So we have 1 flag lot. Right. Here's the lot sizes. The smallest would be 0.804 acres, the largest at 1.063 acres, average lot size of 0.919 acres. Our master plan for the city says west of West Avenue, the recommended lot size is about 1 acre, and we're slightly under 1 acre, but close. So we're very much in keeping with the the average lot sizes for the area west of West, which is where our subdivision name came from. Okay. Stormwater study, we had to get this done by an engineering firm for the replat. There's a study that should have been included with your packet from Matkin and Hoover. Their findings for that 4.6 acres, they termed it a fairly wooded ground cover, type D soil. There's actually 2 watersheds that come through that property, and that property is the recipient of water from uphill from another 1.43 acres. So we enjoy runoff onto our property from neighbors to the north of that. Moderate slope, and the site drains 2 ways, West Avenue and to the Almas Creek, which we'll look at right here. Here's the watershed. The top point of that triangle is not our property. Those are properties outside of the boundary that flow into the 4.6 acres. We have 2 parts, the green part on the right that drains to West Avenue, to the drainage facilities already there at West Avenue and Hibiscus. And then the blue area drains onto Hibiscus and eventually flows to Hibiscus to the west to the drainage creek that's behind our Foxhall house right now. All right. So the results of the stormwater study, the engineering study that you have, that study was based on using 5,000 square feet of impervious additional coverage on those 4 lots and maintaining using the existing drainage discharge locations. What they indicated was that the results of the development could imitate the pre-development conditions by the use of improved landscaping from the current fair wooded ground cover with no adverse impact on downstream drainage. So good news there that we're keeping so much open ground cover that really landscaping can control the runoff. Now to enforce that, we're not building the houses there, we're selling the lots. We have to have a way to get the owners of the new properties to comply, so that happens through deed restrictions. And here's the key points. There's a number of other things, but these are the highlights. Keep it single-family residential. We're here for a replat, not a rezone. It's staying single-family residential. That was a key spot. We put in a restriction they cannot further subdivide the lots. So the lot sizes we're putting in here will be the permanent lot sizes. They can't get any smaller. Impervious cover limit of 5,000 square foot unless, there's 3 caveats here. There is an engineering study, a stormwater runoff study, and some kind of a rainwater harvesting system and installed landscaping to prevent runoff. So if someone does want to put in a bigger house, for example, if they add rainwater harvesting to capture the runoff from the roof of the house, that would be acceptable if it passes an engineering study. Okay? So we want to encourage retention of water on the property, and this is a mechanism that we're going to use. And there's other deed restrictions like height of houses and other things to maintain the aesthetics of the neighborhood. All right? And to the summary here, replatting to 5 lots, 0.8 acres to almost 1.1 acres, consistent with the neighborhood, consistent with the master plan, no adverse effects from the stormwater runoff, and deed restrictions to ensure we maintain the runoff and the aesthetics of the neighborhood. All right? And here's the photo of iconic Castle Hills, very similar to the one that appeared in the Express News. That's the house that will be retained. That's all we have, folks. Any questions?
Thank you. Oh, go ahead.
5,000 square feet include the drive?
It does. That's all impervious cover.
And
That
a
would be flat
pool?
work and the house.
And like a swimming pool is also,
That would be part of impervious cover too. So if they want to add that and it goes above the 5,000 square feet, it trips into the need for rainwater harvesting and other provisions. All right?
Folks, let's hang on the questions, please, okay? And then we'll come back to them when we go into discussion. Is that okay?
Yep.
Sure.
Good, thanks. Okay, Mr. Baker, thank you so much for your presentation. According to Section 40-72 of our code, the city manager presents final recommendation to the council. Diane, will you give your recommendation, please? We'll then come back for questions, and believe me, we'll spend plenty of time, as much as you need.
Mayor and City Council, Section 4072 in our code states that the final plat will be presented to the City Council by the City Manager with their final recommendations. This replat that you have before you has been thoroughly researched and adjustments were made along the way. A replat is not simply subdividing a large parcel into smaller lots. It is incumbent upon city staff to do their due diligence. We must know the codes and apply them fairly for everyone. We cannot select favorites. It is equal for all. Countless hours were spent researching the codes and ensuring the replat met all of our codes. I would like to go through the research with you now. This is the replat that you have seen that was just presented by Mr. Baker. It's the replat establishing the Woods West of West subdivision. The replat was submitted to us and accepted on October 30th, 2015. It was sent over to RPS Clots for review with the stormwater so that they could look at all of that and verify that we met all of our requirements. And then simultaneously, the city manager conducts concurrent review of the submission. The first thing that I noticed was section 8-113 of our current code, which says sewer connection is required. I'm not going to read the whole thing to you. What it boils down to is if you are within 200 feet of a public sanitary sewer, then you must connect. There is an 8-inch sewer main right there. There's a private well right there. If you see this dotted line right there, that's a 150-foot sewer, sanitary sewer. It's a radius. Lot 1D and 1E are going to have to connect to the sewer. Then we had section 8-175, which are the minimum area requirements for lots without public sewer connections. And basically what this says is you need to have 100-foot frontage. As you see, the flag lot does not, down here, does not have the 100-foot frontage. So this one will have to connect down to the sewer.
Which one?
The flag lot.
1B?
1B.
Okay, so that now we have 3 lots connecting to the sewer.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, after
But the other
consultation.
2 don't have to.
I'm sorry?
The other 2 don't have to unless the home builder
Hang on, Leslie.
decides to.
No.
Okay.
Come on, everybody, let's hang on.
Okay, after consultation with the city attorney and the engineers regarding the requirements for the sewer and/or the septic system per current codes, a meeting occurred between the applicant and the city attorney about the requirements. The next day, the former mayor contacted the city staff to research the June 2012 city council meeting because he did not agree with my evaluation of what we needed to do to move forward. So I went to the June 12th meeting notes, and I found notes for a liquid waste discharge committee and their mission, and this is very important to look at the, I always do that. Look at chapter 18. This is their mission, chapter 18 and chapter 20. That was plumbing and sewer. If you read the second to last sentence in there, they also were given carte blanche to city staff and a blank check for third-party resources. This is what was passed on June 12th. And in summary, what it did was gave the county authority to govern the septic systems within the city limits. Again, if you'll look at the chapter 18 and the chapter 20. A year later, the city spent over $12,000 to codify the Code of Ordinances. Now, if I'm going to spend over $12,000 of taxpayers' money, I'm going to make pretty darn sure that those ordinances are correct. This was the ordinance that was passed May 14th, 2013. It recodified the ordinances, and City Council adopted it. The former administration was so confident that this was correct that it was passed on a consent agenda. If you look, Section 5-304 became Section 8113, which I just showed you before. Chapter 5 was never addressed before. Section 5401 to Section 5403 became Section 8-175. So again, I'm going to show you where 8-113 is, and if you will note, this ordinance has been on the books since 1965. It has had several revisions. It has never been changed. This is the ordinance as it stands. Section 8175, which I showed you before, again has been on the books since 1965. Again has had several revisions. So I would think that with all these revisions, that somebody would have known that these two were on the books, and had they wanted them changed, they would have changed them. That's my opinion. So, where are we today? The notes on the replat, if you look at your replat, under the sewer note, there is currently in effect a provision in the Castle Hills Code of Ordinances which would require lots 1B, D, and E to connect to the public sanitary sewer system if improvements are constructed on those lots. If you look under general notes, existing well will be plugged if the lot is served by OSSF or use only
What is OSSF?
on-site sewer facility. Yes. Or used only for irrigation if well is to be served by municipal sewer. Number 5 is sanitary sewer lines, septic leach fields, and aerobic spray areas are prohibited within the 150-foot sanitary well easement. I'm here to give my recommendation. I believe that council should approve this replat. I believe that the Bakers have fulfilled all of the ordinances for the city, and I fully recommend it.
Thank you, Diane. Okay. Do we have a motion on this item?
Move
So
to
move the
approve.
motion.
Okay. Did you get that? Okay, good. Okay, discussion?
I have a question about one of the
Go ahead, Ms. Winger.
points that Diane raised.
Sure.
I mean, I know this is probably moot from your report, but I don't understand how the city of Castle Hills, which is a subdivision of state government, could possibly think that they have the authority to give another entity authority to regulate something that the state has given to TCQ.
Are you talking about,
About giving the county the authority to regulate septics, I think you said. Because that's not something that the city has a right to do.
yes, they do. And actually, Dr. McGuire is here, and he served on that committee because I don't remember the governing authority that gave Bear County that authority. If you,
Ms.
if you
Winger,
don't mind, he
would you
can-
like to entertain Dr. McGuire's comment on this?
No, I can find out later. It's just a point of curiosity, because
at the time, and again, I don't remember all the specifics, but I do know, and I don't know if it was TCEQ, Edwards Aquifer, who it might have been, or the state legislature, but somebody gave Bear County the authority, and that was a good move, because then the county is responsible for keeping track of all the septic systems, right?
Okay.
It gets it off of us, really.
So it had to have come from the legislature. Okay, that was my question.
Hang on, we'll get to him. Thank you, Ms. Weiner. Was there any other questions you had or comments? Thank you so much. Matt, did you have any questions or comments?
The well does not have to be plugged if they use it for irrigation only. Is that correct?
And have a sewer connection.
Right. Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Daggett. Mr. Squire, did you have any questions or comments for?
Yeah, I'm just trying to get some clarifications here.
Thank you.
Mr. Baker, I was trying to understand this, I guess first things on the well that Mr. Daggett touched on. Are there any minimum requirements of having a sewer line run by a well? Is there a minimum setback or minimum offset?
I'm not familiar one between a sewer line and a well. Between septic and a well, yes, but not
Right.
sewer. I'm not aware of a separation between a sewer line and a well.
Okay, I'm just curious. Are there any statutes out there that set a minimum distance you can run a sewer line next to a well?
Not that I know of, and I'm assuming our engineers
Would have
considered
caught that? I take it they would have caught that, correct?
Yes, I
We
would
have
think so.
wells in Castle Hills
Okay.
that have sewer lines right next to them.
Yeah, we have lots of things in this city I find out more and more, but that doesn't make it legal either. So I'm just curious. I want to make sure as we go forward.
Okay, guys.
So the other thing I'm curious about is on Lot 1B, since it pretty much has to be on sewer, was there any thought about trying to allow an easement between Lot 1E and 1D to allow them to go straight to the sewer on West Avenue? Or is that something that's going to have to run down that driveway and then along the street to West Avenue?
There is no easement planned across any of the properties from the neighboring property.
Okay.
So it will have to run down the driveway and follow the street.
Okay. Okay.
There's no easement across any of the other properties. We want to basically keep it clean neighbor to neighbor.
Okay. Okay. I'm just curious. If I was looking at that lot, I'd like a way to get to it that's as inexpensive as possible. So that's just my pure curiosity on that. So, let me see here.
I believe that's prohibited in the code, isn't it, Diane? You cannot give sewer easement at all anyways, right? Across another property?
If it was in the, if it was in the replat,
You could.
you could,
Got it.
but it's not going to be in the replat.
Got it.
Okay, so that covers that and that. The deed restrictions. You're going to sell all 5 lots, I take it.
That's correct.
That would be the plan. I would do that.
That is the plan.
Okay. How are these deed restrictions enforced after everything is sold?
Through a court of law.
And who files suit? I mean, who's the one responsible to make sure that they comply with the deed restrictions?
Any party can. A neighbor can, and that's happened in Castle Hills. There have been Castle Hills residents who filed suit because other neighbors failed to follow deed restrictions. The city could file suit. Okay, so private citizens or the city could file suit for enforcement of deed restrictions.
Okay. Okay. And again, my concern is if somebody, I just know how you enforce deed restrictions now, because the city won't do it. They won't want to get involved in it, in my opinion. Yeah. And my concern, which I think you've really tried to address, is trying to mitigate stormwater runoff. And that was something I've had a issue with, because I don't want to compound it, because it's going to run down to your place.
Absolutely.
And
we're trying to be proactive here, and the one enforcement mechanism we have available is deed restrictions. And believe me, our neighbors will keep them honest.
Okay. Well, my question on that is, did you ever consider, or would it make sense to include that in the plat? Specifically...
No, that's really infeasible for us, since we're just selling the lots and not the builder. Okay? We're not designing the houses. We don't know what a person who buys it wants to build. So we found it infeasible for us to put in items where someone who buys the property might come and change it later on. So we finally resolved ourselves that we had to put in deed restrictions to get them to the goal that we wanted, but we couldn't design the property for them, because that's their custom home, that's their custom property. It's infeasible for us to create it for them.
Okay.
All right?
Okay. and hold on a second, Mr. Brennan, since we can't necessarily force this to go into the plat either, is there any responsibility on the city if there is an increase in stormwater runoff and they come back and somebody tries to hold us liable for that?
Yes, we have the liability.
Yeah, I don't want to say we don't have responsibility if we're approving the plat and we're not injecting any, city required mandatory requirement on that issue. In theory, we could be sued, or a claim could be made if it was foreseeable that we're creating a problem. I don't think we have liability if it's, it's a problem that's not likely or not really reasonable or foreseeable.
Okay.
I know that's kind of a vague answer, but
Mike, excuse me for interrupting, but wouldn't the stipulations that they put into the original deal help the case?
yeah, it would, because it has been addressed, and we're not approving those deed restrictions or confirming or ratifying or any of that, but they have been submitted to us as a solution to that problem, and I think it would help us. Mr. Carter, can I answer one question, though, that you raised a minute ago?
Sure.
And I was a little unclear exactly on the answer, but there are actually two plat notes in here, number 5 under general notes and number 6 under CPS notes, I don't know how it ended up there, that say that sanitary sewer lines, septic leach fields, and aerobic spray areas are prohibited within the 150-foot sanitary well easement. So I think your question was, if you were connecting to the sanitary sewer system and ran a pipe or a line through the easement area, could you do that? And according to these plat notes in 5 and 6, they can't do that.
Mike, can I ask you a quick follow-up on that? When somebody comes in and wants to build a house, they got to go through our permit process, and our building inspector will look at that and see if it's following the restrictions.
Sure.
So, you might...
They'll look at it and see if it's following the city codes, the building codes, et cetera, zoning codes and everything, and the plat notes.
Right.
But they don't look at the deed restrictions. The city does not enforce private deed restrictions.
So what does this do for Lot 1E? What is the impact on Lot 1E based on that?
Well, what this says is you can't build a sewer line or place a sanitary sewer line through that 150-foot well easement, and I'm not sure how it's going to happen. Do you know?
No, I don't. Until we address it here.
Yeah, okay. I don't know. It's in here, and I don't know exactly how it's going to work out.
Do you have the engineer here with you, too?
I'm sorry?
Do you have the engineer with you that did this?
No.
Oh, okay. Does the topography allow for it to go down the driveway? Well, I guess you can't do that because you're not set up like that. Okay. Is that well considered a sanitary well?
Sanitary well? Freshwater well.
It says within 150 feet, within the 150 feet sanitary well easement. I'm sorry, that's they're calling it. Okay.
And that's if
All right.
you look at your plat, the dotted line.
Yeah, I see it.
Quentin, was that wording a requirement from the county? That 5 and that 6? Do you recall?
Which word?
Well, it's the wording says in 2 different places, sanitary sewer lines, septic leach fields, aerobic sprayed areas are prohibited within the 150-foot sanitary well easement. And that
came from Andy Winters with Bear County.
I think that came from Bear County. Did you agree with that? I mean, y'all going with that?
It does, if Lot E was purchased by itself, the most viable option would be to plug the well and put in sewer.
Because if the well is actually plugged, then that's not there's no more easement, is there?
There's no more easement, exactly.
That was the way I understood it. But the wording here is a little, it doesn't say unless the well is plugged. You don't have to do something. So I'm not sure that's the right wording, but.
In the letter that Andy Winters certified the OSSF certification, he stated that if the well is plugged, that then the sewer can go down there. If it's not, then this had to be in there, and that applies because of the 100-foot sanitary sewer easement.
Well, I'd say, then y'all just need to make sure you keep that letter on hand when that question comes up, if it does.
One last question here from a standpoint, if somebody buys Lot 1E, could they utilize, if they have an agreement, could they utilize Lot 1B for ingress and egress?
Well, there's a possibility that folks will buy more than one lot.
Oh, okay,
All right, so we have to make that allowance that if they do, then they may have adequate separation.
okay.
All right? In
Okay.
that case, certainly, they could. Now, I don't know whether by agreement with someone else, they could create an arrangement where they run the line through.
But the deed restrictions wouldn't restrict that, though, I mean,
But
okay.
we had to leave open the possibility that folks could buy more than one lot.
Okay.
And thus, they've got the options within the language of the ordinances, right?
Okay, okay, thank you.
Right now, the house is connected to the well, and the house does have septic, but breaking it into 5 lots, Lot E would have to, if it was purchased on its own, would have to come up with its own plan separate from the house. If the Lot E and D, the house and the well lot were purchased together, you'd be allowed to keep the well and the house would be on septic. So it leaves that option open. It doesn't, we don't have to preemptively plug that well. So plating right now gives us that option.
No more questions. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you very much. We're going this way. Matt, did you have any questions or comments for Mr. Baker? No, I don't. Thank you very much. Ms. Winger? Okay. Is there anybody else? Thank you, council.
Public hearing on this thing?
Does everybody understand the relevance of the county thing that Mr. McGuire was going to comment on? They totally understand that? Good. All right. With that said, we have a motion, we have a second on the table. A recommendation by the city manager to approve this. All in favor? It's unanimous. Thank you, council. Congratulations, Mr. Baker. Well, it's already done. It's already done, David. Sorry.
I think this one's over, Mayor.
It is. It is. Thank you very much. Okay. I would remind you, David, and citizens to be heard next time. You can bring that up or however you want to do it, but it's done. Thank you. Okay. Okay, the next item on the agenda is item 8, which is consider the approval of ordinance 2016-0112A, amending Chapter 48 vegetation by repealing Article 3, other trees, and adopting new Article 3, Chapter 8 of place of former Article 3. Diane, will you explain this item, please?
I will. Mayor and City Council, Chapter 48 of the Castle Hills Code of Ordinances deals with vegetation. Article 3 is other trees. Article 3 Divisions 1 and 2 were amended to remove the redundant language, and the sections were reorganized, making the code easier to read, understand, and follow. We included a comparison for your review of the current and proposed ordinance. The current code on Division 1, it lists the requirements of obtaining a permit in 3 separate locations. So what we did was we consolidated it into one exception, into one section. We also added exceptions to address emergency